Welcome to another episode of Learning How to Live. So, today we're looking at why daily rhythms and rituals work. I was actually thinking earlier on that when I think about my mornings, sometimes they're very calm, and then you have other days when they are very chaotic. But my guest has found a way to bring harmony into the day from sunrise to sunset. So please help me welcome my guest, Cindy.
Good morning. Thank you so much. And it's always such a highlight for me to spend time with you.
100%.
I think it's so great that we get to share this with the audience because, as you said, a lot of people are finding themselves in that I don't know what to do next moment.
Yeah,
And so this is wonderful that we get to have these conversations.
100%.
Thanks.
How have you been? We're transitioning now into spring. It's almost springtime. How's that?
You
How's that
know,
been?
wintertime I find brings up a lot of stuff for us to look at.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of there's this hibernation energy or what it is exactly, but I think that has been the process for myself and a lot of people in our community have really looked at life in general. What am I doing with my life? Where am I going? And what kind of habits are sort of like limiting beliefs and things that keep popping up? And so for myself, I've actually joined a women's study group and we started, really brainstorming things of
Nice.
how can we re-look at life through a different lens. And it's helped me a lot, but it's also shown me where I still have a lot of limited beliefs. So I think it's going to be beautiful to go into spring and now put those things into practice.
Yeah.
And the same with today's conversation. It's the practical tools of how do you actually live life on a daily basis.
100%. I think let's get into it. I want to start with the anchor, right? Because I remember there's a gentleman who said something very profound. He said that if people are going to have sustained change in their lives, they need to know why. Why has to be the center. So it needs to be the anchor. So I want to start with the first question, and that is, how do daily rituals and rhythms influence your overall being? Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. So, for the most part, we've spoken a lot about the nervous system. And when we are stressed, we go into this fight or flight kind of situation, or sometimes freeze even. So, fight, flight, freeze. And if we create almost like the ideal situation in our life with a rhythm, it's almost like the nervous system knows what to expect next. So, on a mental and emotional and physical level, you're actually allowing the body some room to breathe. So, I know life happens. You can have the perfect day planned, and calendar and whatever.
Yeah.
And then traffic happens or something happens along the way. But if you have something to fall back on, then it's almost like it resets the nervous system at different times of the day. So if you build in a little bit of a routine for morning, for midday, and then late
The
in the
evening as
afternoon,
well, yeah.
evening,
Yeah.
then even if the morning collapses and, it's just absolute chaos, in the back of your subconscious mind, it's almost like it's a safety net that will catch you because I know something will happen midday or something will happen at the end of the day and allows room for breathing. So you can just say, okay, it's fine. I'm going to just deal with whatever the issue is right now. But I know at least tonight I can reset and
Yeah.
start again.
100%. It's interesting that you talk about the afternoon and the evening because that's something we're going to be touching on later on. I want to know what made you start paying attention to these rituals and habits. Yeah.
I actually had, I know we had a quick conversation just before we started recording about my teen son and how the two of us have been going through this journey of learning how to communicate properly with each other. And on my way here, I reflected on a time when my mom used to be, in the household with two teenagers, and it was myself and my brother. And it was always on the mornings when she was running late that we also had our emotional little meltdown moments. And I looked at what was different to what happened then and what's happening now. And I think what I've learned from that is how to stay calm in that moment.
Sure.
And it was quite an aha moment for me is life for a parent most of the time is rushed anyway because you are juggling your own life, your work, your studies, or whatever it is that you're busy with, plus your relationship with your husband or wife. and then you've got children. So you're not only just juggling your own stuff, but you're also taking on your children's stuff, and you only want the best for them, of course. But the reality is that life will probably be rushed until the day you retire, for those who do, choose that route to retire. So do you want to live every single day as a rushed day and rush past your partner or your children or your colleagues just to get to the next and the next and the next and the next thing? Or do you want to be conscious in those moments of chaos? And what unfolded for my son and I this morning, and that was also like a win, because normally it would be like a couple of hours of these discussions, back and forth. And it was literally like I said to him, okay, I have to go. I've got another meeting. I can't deal with this right now. He went to his room, and then by the time I left the house, he texted me and he apologized, and then I apologized. And it was like within 5 minutes, the whole thing was resolved. And I think what we've both learned is when the emotions rise is to stay calm. And so the importance of having these little safety nets that you put into your day starts to show you when you are unconscious in your day. And at least if you have these checkpoints to check in with yourself, you can go, right, it's my midday check-in. How was my morning? How conscious was I with my interaction with my partner, with my children, with my work colleagues, or with the people on the road? Was it a almost like my brain was just on autopilot? I'm just rushing to get to the next thing. Or am I really living my best life where even in the moment of chaos, I'm taking a moment to pause, to breathe and go, okay, this is not ideal, but how can I be present in this? Because life is going to give you the highs and the lows. And can you be present in every single moment that life presents you?
I guess it's a chat of being intentional.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm picking up. You talk about being calm. Easier said than done.
Yes.
Right. Maybe you can share your experience, of tapping into that calm space. Yeah.
A long time ago, I heard a woman say that, when someone says something that triggers you, count to 10. And then I was listening to a podcast at the end of last year about marriage advice, and relationships, and how they say actually count to 20. And I preferred what the woman shared in the count to 20, because she said, especially when we communicate with our husbands or our sons, it takes a lot of time for the men to sort of express what it is that they're really feeling, because we're living in a society where men very rarely feel the confidence or feel safe enough to actually share what they are burdened with. And so if you wait till 20 counts, it almost gives them time to just process what it is that they're wanting to share. And so when this process with my son and I actually started yesterday already, and we were stuck in the traffic from Pretoria back home, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to count way past 20. I'm just going to keep counting until he eventually finishes exactly what it is that he wants to express. And with him, it comes through first in like an emotional burst out.
Sure, yeah.
And then he goes quiet and he thinks about it for a while, and he starts speaking and he thinks. And then after this whole like half an hour car ride, I realized the thing that was actually triggering him at that moment wasn't the thing that he had a burst out about. It was something completely different. But if I intervened in that moment to say, okay, but, or maybe try this, we would never have gotten to that point. And so to come back to how intentional am I with myself, with others, is instead of being reactive in that moment and to come back to calm is, can I be silent? Because when we listen, we sometimes hear something that either energetically or, with body language is shown, or you're actually giving that person a chance to really express. And when you're quiet, it makes them feel safe that they can actually express to you what it is that they are feeling. So this inner state of calm is something that you're gifting to yourself as well as the person that you're connecting with, because you are in a state of non-interaction or non-reactiveness, like you're just listening. How can I just be here for you and just hold space for you? And this is something that obviously, most days we try and then sometimes we fail. But if you're conscious of it and you know that I'm setting an intention to count to 10 or count to 20 in the heat of a conversation, then it opens up that room for calm. And, my partner actually said something so beautiful to me this weekend, because we were talking about, I was doing a presentation for a group and people were firing with questions, and all of a sudden I felt like all this pressure on me, like I have to know every single answer. And he said, but that's life, right? Life's constantly going to throw
True.
things at you. And even if you don't have the answer, can you create space within yourself for the Holy Spirit to lead you? And that was such a profound moment for me to say, if I create space within me, the answers will come. And it's the same with this counting to 10 or counting to 20, because you know the guidance that's coming through you is not of you. You know, it's something that flows through you. So that inner state of calm is, yes, it is something that you're cultivating with practice.
100%.
But you are connecting to something that's way more profound than just the counting to 10. You are opening yourself up for that moment of calm or that silence so that you can be guided. And I think that for me was the golden nugget of, can I live a life that's firstly on purpose? You know, can I live with intention? And can I create so much space within me that when life happens, that I don't have to rely on my own resources? That I've either got a daily rhythm that I can fall back on, or I can just say, in this moment, show me. I don't know what I'm doing, just show me. And I think that was the sort of aha moment this weekend of saying, okay, I need to create more space within myself so that I don't have to lead the way, you know?
That's very, very profound. In essence, seek to understand before you can be understood.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want us to talk about the mornings, right? How do you start your day for your body, your mind, and your soul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's important that people, when we speak about body, mind, and soul, that people understand that you are not just this physical body, right? We have got a capacity, and I mean, when they talk about in psychology and those types of conversations, we talk about you have your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. So sort of the conscious mind is how, the conversation that you and I are having. And the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind is actually where all of our beliefs are based, you know, how you were raised and how you perceive the world. So when we say, I am body, mind, and soul, it's important to feed each of those individual spaces in your body, because otherwise that's when the wheels come off for people, right? If they just focus on one thing. And for most people, it's mind, because they're either in front of a screen or having a conversation. So often the body part, you know, if they don't make time for physical wellness, that sort of causes, you know, illnesses and dis-ease. And the soul part is, what is my divine purpose in this lifetime? Why am I here? And how can I find, first of all, that point of stillness within myself, and so that I have enough space within me to give to the world?
Right.
And so when you then build a practice in the morning for body, mind, soul, afternoon body, mind, soul, evening body, mind, soul, you make sure that each of those spaces have got a little bit of balance. So it doesn't have to be very glamorous or overwhelming. It can literally be as in, first thing in the morning, you can start with, so for myself, I like to do my quiet time. So sometimes that's just my meditation. Sometimes it is journaling. So a lot of people prefer the idea of morning pages. So morning pages is literally, as you wake up, often we receive answers to our prayers at night. You know, you set an intention, this is something I need clarity on or an answer on. And because our minds are so busy, we sort of miss that cue of when you get the inspiration or when the information comes through. And so the morning pages practice is actually, as you wake up, you've got your journal right next to you in your bed, and you sit up in bed, you take your journal, and you just start writing. There's no pre-planned idea of, I'm going to write about X, Y, Z. And you will be amazed the information that comes to you while you're writing.
Yeah.
And so the idea is 2 to 3 pages. It doesn't have to be massive pages, even if you've got a small journal. But that sort of allows the subconscious to share the information that was downloaded through the night, you know, the answers to prayers that you've been sending out. And so after that, then, once you've had your quiet meditation or your morning pages, it's beautiful to go into some form of movement, because sometimes the body feels a bit stuck, right? You wake up and you're feeling like, I've got aches and pains, or, you know, if you had a hectic day, you might feel some stress still left. And that first part of movement just gets the body going. So it can be a gentle stretch. It can be something like yoga. You can go for a run, whatever it is that you prefer to do. And then from that, we also want to connect not just with the physical movement of the body, but also activating the gut. So how we do that is with a beautiful our morning water. So they call it a water ritual, but pretty much what it is making sure you put the minerals right back into the body. So a squeeze of lemon, maybe a teaspoon of honey, and some Himalayan salt or some sea salt that you just put into your water. And that very first remedy that you prepare for the body prepares your gut for your breakfast that's going to come later. And especially now as we're moving into spring and summer, it's really brilliant to go into intermittent fasting where you don't have your breakfast early in the morning. So you allow your body just to take in those minerals, and man, you can have your coffee or your tea or whatever after that. And from that then, you start your day. You flow into that, okay, I've looked at body, mind, soul now, so my body and my mind and my soul feel satisfied, and then I can start my day with intention. So there's also a beautiful practice where once you start your day, you can also think of 3 things that you're really grateful for. And I mean, gratitude practice is always beautiful. Whether you do it in the beginning or the end of the day, it just sets the tone. And it opens up your heart so that you're open to receive more things. And especially if you then do it at the end of the day as well, it just seals that circle of I'm grateful for this life that I have. And then the other thing is, like we always speak about breath work, breathing with intention. So it can literally be 7 conscious breaths or any of the breath practices that we've discussed in the past. But it is starting my day with, if my body, mind, and soul is in alignment, I'm ready to be conscious into the first part of my day.
That's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Just by the way, if you're tuning in for the first time, I do suggest that you go and watch the previous episodes. There's a lot of information there that will help you. Do you have a non-negotiable ritual?
Yeah, so for me, definitely there's 2.
Yeah.
My morning meditation and my evening meditation is an absolute must, because that's where I create the space for the silence within me to hear what the information is that I'm supposed to be hearing and what I'm supposed to be sharing. And the second part is my beautiful water that I drink in the morning. So I love to add my lemon and my honey and my salt in my water. Sometimes I have time for a really extended movement in the mornings, and other times if you've had a bit of a lie-in, especially in winter time, then it might just be a quick stretch. But it can also look like just doing some tapping on the body, just to wake up certain parts of the brain, or just getting that flow going. Yeah, so I think you sort of find what is most important for you, and my quiet time is my absolute must, because that's how I make sure that I'm in alignment with my purpose, and that what I'm sharing with the world is actually not just what my view is, but what is good for the greater good of humanity. And I think that's quite important, to find something that aligns you with something bigger than yourself. Yeah.
There's actually a balcony. We have this big balcony upstairs at our home. And I was thinking about it the other day. And I thought to myself, I actually want to make it into a safe haven whereby in the morning I could just go up there,
Yes.
see nature and just spend time in quiet time, talking to God, journaling, whatever the case may be, maybe listening to worship music or just being quiet.
Yes.
It's something that I'm actually looking at doing. For somebody because I know of my friends, some of my friends are always like rushing in the morning. My wife as well sometimes.
Yeah.
For somebody who's always rushing in the morning, what is one small change that they could start with, to get into these rituals?
So the quickest thing for me is tapping. And I think we've mentioned it briefly in the past, but pretty much what it is you are sending a signal to your nervous system that even though chaos is happening right now, I'm still okay. And whatever steps I'm taking is on purpose. So when we look at our thymus, which is right here on your sternum bone, your thymus gland regulates your hormones. It regulates the messages that go through to your nervous system. And so that's quite a quick one that you can do. There's many tapping techniques and many different routines that you can do, but to bring yourself conscious in that moment is what I start to do is I just tap.
You just do this.
So right here, you'll feel it's sort of underneath this indent, there's like a hard bone right here. And when you press in, it feels like a solid structure there, that hard bone. That's your sternum bone. And so if this is the sternum, right underneath the sternum is this beautiful organ. Actually looks like a butterfly. So that's your thymus gland. So you literally breathe excessively. So and it's almost, they call it the thymus thump. So it sounds like someone's knocking at your heart's door, right? And so this actually activates the information that goes from the brain to the gut and bypasses through the heart as well to say, no one's chasing me. I'm not being chased by a lion.
Right.
And I'm actually safe in this moment. So yes, I might be stuck in traffic, or my partner and I just had a disagreement, or I've overslept. So I'm literally grabbing my coffee and running. By the time I physically get into the car and I've now made my way onto the main road, I tap. And so even though I didn't do all of my morning practices, I'm letting my nervous system know that right now I'm okay, I'm safe. And that small practice, if you can do that a couple of times throughout the day, just to reset your nervous system, it will open up space for the brain to start thinking of the bigger picture. Because if you are in fight or flight, there's no room for creativity. But the minute you reset the nervous system, you're giving the body a signal to say, okay, I'm safe. You can start to think about other things now. So yes, my morning was crazy. I didn't get to do my practice, but guess what? Once I got into the office, I'm going to do the first 10 emails or the first 10 calls, and then I'm going to take a minute, and maybe we can just flow into that afternoon practice. So at midday, we call it, it's almost like a heart check-in, like you're scanning your body. So if you can find any space, whether it's, if you don't have space in the office, maybe walk outside into the garden or go and sit physically in your car for like 5 minutes, and maybe you start with the tapping, but then from that space, you just place your hand on your heart. And what we've actually learned is there's more neurons that go from the heart to the brain than the other way around. So people often think that our lives are being led by the physical brain. It's actually not. We're living from the heart space because most of the stuff that triggers us is from an emotional or a sensory perspective. And that information, that data gets sent up to the brain. The brain then decides what is the next step. So we are actually heart beings. We're living from our heart. So if we can become conscious and aware of that, and we focus, there's actually an institute called the Heart Math Science Institute. And they talk about little tips of how you can live more on purpose from the heart. But in that moment, after tapping on the heart, first of all, then you place your hand on your heart and you go, right, you scan your heart and you ask, what is the emotion that my heart wants to express right now? And often it's something that happened in the morning, but because you were so busy, you didn't have a moment to catch up with that. But now that you're scanning the body and you're checking in with your heart, it might say overwhelm, whatever it's feeling. And you go, great, thank you. And then as you acknowledge it, the body releases it. That's how simple it is. It literally is like a little child that just wants to be paid attention to. It just wants to say, notice me, listen to what I want to say, and then you listen and the body resolves. So those little moments of check-in is very crucial, I would say midday, whether it's a tap or a scanning of the heart. And then if you can, for most people when they're at the office, right? There's no chance of leaving your desk. But if you can, take a 5-minute or a 10-minute just to go and walk, even if it is through the building or around the block, just so that you can reset the nervous system and reconnect to what is my intention for today. It also helps you just to process what's happened this morning. I had 10 things on my to-do list, but then this person phoned me and that one demanded this and whatever. So I'm just giving myself a moment to actually process what's happened. And then I also reflect on what's waiting for me for the rest of my day. How can I be more prepared for that? So just giving yourself that moment to step into preparation resets the nervous system again. So it's creating little moments of pause. It doesn't have to be long. Even if you can't do 10 minutes, 2 minutes, just tap and go, okay, this just happened and it's okay because I'm going to try and fit it into my day as best as I possibly can. And then, what's the next thing?
Yeah. I'm wondering what role stepping away from your device actually plays. Because oftentimes we're on our phones, our laptops, our iPads.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if I step away from this,
Yeah.
is there any impact that happens?
Yeah. So one of the things that I did write down for our discussion today was a 20-minute detox. So a tech docs. And what that actually means is in that moment, there's a lot of light that gets sent through our screens.
Right.
And obviously that stimulates more production of cortisol, which is our stress hormone. So the moment you step away from your device and you're in a space of natural light, so maybe going sitting in the sun.
The sun, yeah.
So obviously sun gazing is great. I know that's also a beautiful morning and afternoon practice when it's sunrise or sunset. But even midday, if you can go and sit somewhere under a tree and just allow the natural sunlight to come into the iris of the eye, that also brings in the serotonin, our happy hormone. And so if we can, anything between 10 and 20 minutes a day where we just do like a screen detox, that's wonderful because it, again, allows the body to just produce naturally our happy hormones, and it helps the mind to start thinking for itself. Because if you think about it, I actually saw another beautiful interview last week about procrastination. And they say a lot of people, when they procrastinate, immediately go to their devices. So they get to the office, they see this inbox full of emails, or like they know they have to make this really important call, whatever, and they go, okay, I'm just going to go into my phone for 5 minutes before I make this call. And then after scrolling through so many cat videos and whatever else is popping up on the algorithm.
It's been an hour.
It's an hour.
Yeah.
And what actually happens in the body, it's not that you are a procrastinator. It's you've created the habit that procrastination is how you self-soothe your nervous system when you are stressed. So how you break that habit is the minute you say, oh, let me just quickly take my phone, instead of taking your phone, you go, okay, I'm overwhelmed with my to-do list for today. I'm going to breathe, just quickly do five deep breaths, then count back from 5 to 1 and say to yourself, I'm committing to only working for 5 minutes. So it's the 5-5-5 rule.
Yeah.
So 5 breaths, count from 5 to 1, and then work for 5 minutes. And I mean, that 5 minutes can be a quick phone call. But what you're doing is you're actually reprogramming your nervous system and your brain to say, I'm breaking that habit of procrastination and I'm starting to take action. And because I'm only doing it 5 minutes at a time, I don't feel overwhelmed. Yeah. And so it's these kinds of little things that we pop into our day that helps to reset the nervous system, and it helps you to live on purpose in that moment.
So one of my phones, it literally has no social media apps. Just my, I think just my email app. That's it. You know, I said to myself, I want to be very intentional because, to your point, we get lost in our devices.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, I want to be super intentional. And so on this one phone, I'll literally just receive calls, make calls, read my emails when I have to. But anything else, I don't want to have on that phone. Very interesting. I want to talk about, I guess we've touched on midday. I want us to talk about the winding down. Now we're getting into the evening. How do you transition from the busyness of the day, into now starting to think about resting or resting your mind? Yeah.
So definitely stepping away from our devices is part of that evening routine. But for most people, what it looks like is you come home quite late. Then it's the rush of preparing supper and making sure if you have got kids that everyone's homework is done or that life is, prepared. And then for a lot of entrepreneurs, they actually work in the evenings as well, just because they have to. There's things to be done. So my advice would be for that to have moments of winding down until your work for the evening is completely done. So for example, if family dinner is a moment maybe to unwind, make sure that you get the whole family involved maybe in the cooking process. And I know for a mom with little toddlers, that's an absolute no-go. What I used to do with my son is we had this kitchen counter and I would put some of the ingredients of what I'm cooking on the table. And I will just say to him, he can taste it or experiment with it. And I mean, he would make such a mess. But at least it felt like we were having a moment to connect and that he was part of the cooking process, even though he really wasn't. And he was also seeing that this is an important thing for mom, for me to be part of this process of preparing a meal. So if you've got small children, maybe it looks like, just giving them some things that they can taste or play with, or instead of them hanging on your skirt and going, Mom, pick me up, they feel like they're part of this process. And obviously, if your children are older or if it's just you and your partner, it's going to be a beautiful time just to connect. How was your day? We can have a conversation while we're cooking. And then the minute you sit down in front of that plate of food, try not to obviously have your meal in front of the TV if you can. And even if you don't have a proper dining room table, maybe put some music on if you have to have your tray on your lap. Put some music on, and in that moment, make sure that you are conscious of that plate of food in front of you. And so, different spiritual cultures, there's this belief that we pray over our food. And what that means is, yes, we activate gratitude. But what we are actually doing is we are activating that food with energy. And when you are conscious of what I'm putting into my mouth, it becomes medicine. So, when I gobble up something, it doesn't even register in the body that I'm taking in proper nourishment. But if I'm sitting in front of this beautiful plate that I've just prepared and I'm chewing on purpose, I'm conscious of the textures, of the flavors, of what I've put in, it helps my nervous system to shut down, and it goes, right, now I can rest and digest. I can actually take in the nourishment of the food. So that's one point that you can use in the evenings to unwind. The second one is, if you can, bring movement into it. I mean, some people like to go and walk around the block in the afternoons, or they do a bit of stretching. Movement, again, releases any tension that we've built up throughout the day. And then the last one is, again, the soul part. And that can look like, again, writing down your experiences of the day, just journaling. It can be another meditation. My partner and I are preparing to go and do a 10-day meditation in the end of the year, where you sit for 10 hours, 10 days in a row. Sure. So it's a silent retreat. And that is obviously, I mean, on a spiritual and a soul level, it's a very deep connection to the Creator. But for yourself, your physical self, to say, how can I sit with myself without a device, without a distraction, without human interaction? How can I just be with what is happening right now? And so when you end off your day with maybe a 20-minute or a 30-minute, or if you can sit for an hour, it doesn't have to be any specific mantras or prayers or anything. It literally is, can I sit in a comfortable position with my body, focus on my breath only, so feeling the inhale and the exhale, and whatever my body wants to express in that moment. And in doing so, you are recreating this safety in the nervous system to say, I'm safe. And therefore, your body starts to release your natural melatonin for sleep time, and you don't need a screen to fall asleep. So, and that's where a lot of people struggle with insomnia, is they have this overdose of screen time throughout the day, high cortisol stress levels, and then on top of that, they lie in bed and scroll on their phones before they fall asleep. And so if you want to reset that, to have proper sleep, it's that moment of complete nothingness, that silence that needs to take place before sleep time.
It's interesting, because I wanted to ask you if you have any tips for better, sleeping. And I think what you just said is it covers.
So sleep. I mean, there's so many things that we can go into, but for the most part, if people can navigate their stimulants throughout the day, whether it's caffeine or nicotine or whatever extra stimulants they use throughout the day, if you can give yourself sort of a cutoff time that maybe I will have my last thing just before dinner, and maybe dinner, for some families it's around 5, 6, for others it's as late as 8 o'clock. I wouldn't have it later than 8. That's already quite late. But if you can say maybe at 5 o'clock is my last stimulants that I'm going to have for the day. And if you are super sensitive to caffeine, maybe have it lunchtime as your last one. But that's the first thing. Look at stimulants, because your brain is already overactive. You don't want to help it along. You don't want it to be more active. So stimulants. And then the second part is obviously, like I said, screen time. Because of the white light that comes through, or the blue light that comes through, it's actually not allowing the brain to go into its natural rhythm of shutting down. So maybe lighting candles. So I know for a lot of people, they enjoy to have a bath in the evening instead of a shower, because again, the bath forces the body to slow down. So light a candle, you're lying in the bath and you're just breathing and just processing your day. And then after that, you can go into your quiet time and really allowing the body just to feel what it needs to feel. If there's aches and pains, if there's emotions, if there's thoughts that need to be expressed, and whether you write them down or just process them, that's fine. But try not to have any external forces coming through. And I know a lot of people love self-education in the evening. So they might listen to a podcast or read something interesting. That's great. But again, make sure that all of that information comes through between 8 and 9 latest. So that from 9 o'clock, so in Ayurveda, like we said, the latest is 10 o'clock bedtime. So from 9 to 10, use that as your quiet time, whether you journal or you can have a physical book that you read, that's fine. But no reading on a device, not no tablet kind of reading. So it's just retraining our bodies in that way. And I mean, if I think of like my mom's family who still stay in the farms in Namibia, we all come from Namibia. And there was no electricity still to this day. So they would use whatever they need to in the day to prepare. But when the sun sets, dude, it's candlelight.
Yeah.
That's how we roll. So, and it was so brilliant because everyone would go to bed early because they know they have to wake up again at 4 to start, the farming process. And that is the body's natural cycle. You are synced with the sun, with the moon, with the seasons, and that's what we need to get back to. That's the medicine that our body is craving.
I wanted to ask you about music. What role does music play in all of this? Yeah.
It's so beautiful that you're asking that. We are moving into an age where people are remembering almost that frequency and energy plays a big role. And if you go onto YouTube at the moment, if you type in frequency music, there's literally thousands of playlists that pop up. And they talk about, the solfeggio frequencies and all of the frequencies that reset the balance in the body. But what they've learned is that every single organ in the body holds a specific frequency. So if you've had a very emotional day, for example, and you're feeling so overwhelmed, you're literally going to type into YouTube heart frequency music.
Okay.
And then you see what comes up. So the idea is you try and move away from music with lyrics after a certain time of the day because you want the body to go into its natural process of processing. So if you love listening to a specific artist, maybe you start your day off with that. That's, like you said, your worship or your whatever. Start your day off with your artists and different musicians or different types of bands throughout the day. But the moment you hit that after dinner mark, you want silence and you want the body to go into its natural rhythms. So when you listen to frequency music specifically, there's different frequencies, and you'll see when you type it in, there's sometimes things for sleep frequency, or there's, if someone has a specific ailment, there's a immune booster frequency. There's for people who struggle with arthritis. There's all these different frequencies that they've now put online for people, and it's free. You can have access to it at any point in time. And so what I love to do is first thing in the morning, that's also one of my other rhythms, as I leave my bedroom and I go into the living room, I go into, because my algorithm now knows that I love frequency music, the minute I go into YouTube, it gives me the frequency for the day. So that already pops up and it says 637 hertz or whatever, So anything from 500 hertz up is heart and higher. So higher consciousness connecting to the life force energy, the creator. And so I switch on my frequency music and that plays in the house the whole day. And then at night, obviously, I look at the evening or the sleep time frequency and I switch that on. Obviously, throughout the day, if you are working from home or if you're driving in your car, you're going to listen to other things. But it is that moment of understanding that certain frequencies actually recalibrate the balance in the organs of the body. It's the same if you think about, when you're standing in front of a gong. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. When they hit that gong, you feel that vibration of that frequency moving through your entire being, and you feel at peace. It's like something happens within the cells of the body that reorganizes them, and you just feel like, okay, I'm zen again, I can do this. And so that's exactly what the frequency music does. It finds the distortion. So if we think about, the little things in the day that trigger you, so they actually cause, each cell in the body has water. And if you look at it under a microscope, there's a little distortion that happens. It looks like there's shock waves in the cells of the water. So when you listen to that frequency, it smooths it out. And it looks like the waters are calm again. Oh. So it's quite profound. You must go and try it out.
Definitely.
Listen to heart frequency.
I made a note here. Yeah. Definitely will check it out.
And see what that brings up for you, in your evening time. Maybe while you guys are having dinners, put that on, listen to a bit of heart frequency and see what comes up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
As we close, two things. One, advice for somebody watching who maybe wants to start a ritual this week, and then quickly maybe tell the listeners about your event that's coming up.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. Yes, guys. So I would say focus on the idea of body, mind, soul. So if we said body, mind, soul, think of what would be something that I can give to myself for my body, what for my mind, and what for my soul. And it doesn't have to be all of the rituals that I've just mentioned throughout the day. Choose one thing. So start with one thing in the morning, one thing in the afternoon, and one thing in the evening. And when we start slowly, it doesn't feel as overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's something that we can integrate into our lives easily. So, yes, start small. Find something that connects with you as a person. So, if you love walking or running or whatever, let that be your thing. And start with once I have perfected the first three, maybe I want to add on the next thing. And gradually you start to create this beautiful life for yourself
Bit
where
by bit.
where you feel like, wow, I'm actually living my best life because I have moments where I check in with myself and I'm just giving to myself to refill my cup.
Wow.
So, thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. And then, yes, guys, for our upcoming event, that's happening at the end of October, the 31st of October to the 2nd of November. It's called the Serenity Festival, and it's all of these beautiful things that we've been sharing in our Learning How to Live podcast, but in practical. So we are going to have the most incredible artists. They are coming to do all sorts of fun things. We are going to be painting murals. There's going to be splash rooms. There's going to be musicians, food, dancers, so many things. But the conversations are going to be around these topics of how can you actually learn how to live your best life. And I think what I love about these community gatherings is you meet other people going through the same stuff, right? And then you sit in circle and you go, right, what are you actually struggling with? And people start sharing ideas and they start sharing conversations. So what I would like to say is for our listeners on this specific podcast, if they book and so if they want to email us or contact us on Hive Mind, just to say they heard about it on the show, and then we'll give them a 20% discount.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so if they want to do that, then
100%.
just let us know. We heard about it on voiceovers, and they can get a 20% discount.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Cindy, ladies and gentlemen, always fun hanging out with you.
Thank you.
I love these conversations. Very informative. And I can't wait for our next one.
Yes, thank you. And have a blessed week for you as well.
You too.
Thanks.
Listen, until next time, cheers.